Okay, here we are. It's Saturday, January 26th. While the meeting takes place in the UN Security Council about Venezuela, about the stated human rights crisis, democracy crisis, a meeting in which Rosemary DiCarlo, the representative of Antonio Guterres, has said he's deeply concerned, so deeply concerned. Antonio Guterres didn't go to the meeting. This is 57th Street. The meeting is on 43rd Street. He couldn't go, not with a Mercedes, not with a 4x4. He couldn't bother to get out of bed and go. Nope. The door is open. The movement is taking place. Get ready. Get ready. They're on the move. Tony is on the move. Here he goes. He didn't go to the Venezuela meeting. He didn't go to the Venezuela meeting. Why didn't you go to the Venezuela meeting? Well, we're going to ask again. We rarely ask questions, but today there's one. Why didn't you go to the Venezuela meeting of the Security Council? Why weren't you there? There's a meeting about human rights in Venezuela taking place, and you're driving away in a Mercedes. There's a meeting on Venezuela about human rights. Could easily have gone at 9 o'clock. Ban the press from covering it from a bus stop. Censorship, absolute censorship, a travesty. Venezuelans fleeing the country on foot, and the Secretary General of the United Nations sleeping in and driving away in a Mercedes. It says it all. Absolute corruption. Total corruption. There's a meeting on Venezuela that you didn't go to. It's a shame. Well, there you have it. Antonio Guterres, totally corrupt. Okay, we're here outside the UN Security Council meeting. We're unable to go in due to a dictator known as Antonio Guterres, but we're here in the park, across from the UN. A little bit cold, but so are they. There was a procedural vote. 9 in favor, 4 against, 2 abstentions. Now the meeting's taking place. What do they want? I'm assuming from their songs that they're against the Maduro government. Many people are fleeing the country. The U.S. has recognized a different leader. And inside the council, they're talking about it today. We've got the police. We'll get a discurso. I'll try to translate. Yeah, this is an anti-Maduro protest from the signs, clearly.
Pero lo importante de hoy es que ahí adentro en la ONU, en el Consejo de Seguridad, la más alta instancia al nivel del secretariado, se oiga que el resto del mundo apoya a Venezuela, que salga el embajador de Reino Unido, que salga el embajador de Francia, que salga el embajador de Bélgica y diga: nosotros apoyamos la gesta del pueblo de Venezuela y creemos que Guaidó es su presidente y los vamos a ayudar. Eso es lo que necesitamos oír hoy y que el mundo también lo oiga, porque vienen días muy duros en los que va a haber que desalojar a Maduro, porque tenemos que instalar el bien en Miraflores. Guaidó tiene que asumir porque es nuestro presidente. Entonces esos días duros que vienen necesitan que el mundo sepa que ya estamos apoyados, que no es un golpe de Estados Unidos, que no es algo fabricado. Yo les quiero presentar un ciudadano de bien, se llama Norman y él tiene algo que decirnos. Vamos a oírnos, por favor.
Nosotros tenemos que ponernos de acuerdo en algo y recordar siempre una cosa. Nosotros tenemos que mandar y ayudar. Nuestra misión como ciudadanos es informar al mundo que Venezuela no hubo un golpe de Estado, informar al mundo que nosotros cumplimos lo que está establecido en la ley. No fue un golpe de Estado. Muchos medios a nivel mundial y en Venezuela piensan que en Venezuela hubo un golpe de Estado por parte del presidente Guaidó. Y nosotros nomás lo que hemos hecho es ejercer el artículo 233 y comenzó con el 333 y el 350. Tenemos el régimen de Nicolás Maduro. Hubo un fraude en las elecciones pasadas y estamos ejerciendo nomás con nuestro poder de ciudadanos. Por eso es que nosotros somos importantes en difundir esta información. No es haciendo menos.
Okay, here we are. It's Saturday, January 26th, inside the United Nations, a meeting on Venezuela. Yes, but we can tell you that the Secretary General, sellout of human rights that he is not here. We just passed by his mansion. We passed by his mansion, and Mr. Antonio Guterres is sleeping in. He's sleeping in. Now, the meeting is starting up. We're covering it from outside because Antonio Guterres is so corrupt that he actually bans journalists that cover Venezuela. But Antonio Guterres himself is not here. His security is in front of his mansion. He doesn't care. Nothing. A man who told his own staff that questions about human rights are impolite. A man who sold the UN down the river to a Chinese oil company and beaten up a journalist who raised it. Let's check it out. Let's see what the vast checking of security really means here at the United Nations. What they should do is just ask, are you going to write an article that Tony Guterres doesn't like? He's going in. Now, the meeting on Venezuela, we're going to cover it from outside. We've covered the UN for 10 years until this corrupt Secretary General arrived. But we're going to continue to cover it. Whatever his gang and militia tends to do. Now, up on 47th Street, there's a small demonstration with a Venezuelan flag. We're going to go and interview those guys, too. We might interview some people on the street, what they think of Guterres. Most of them don't know, I'll be honest with you. I've interviewed people and they still think the previous Secretary General is in because this guy has done nothing. He's taken public money to fly to his home. Disgusting. All right, we're going to end this first broadcast and go check out from another angle what's happening inside. Here at the United Nations, what we can tell you is that Antonio Guterres is corrupt. He's sleeping in. Whatever his views were on Venezuela, to sleep in and be lazy is unacceptable. He's a censor. To be continued. Hang on. Yes, we're here covering the Venezuela meeting. Now we're going to need we need a bus to stop here so we can get our famous MTA Wi-Fi. Hang on a moment. This may screw up, but we're going to try. Going to give it a go. I think it can be done. Well, maybe that's going to turn that one off. Let's see. Okay, and here we are. Intercity Press will cover the UN Security Council meeting on Venezuela here from the bus stop outside the UN because the Secretary General is so corrupt that to protect and to hinder coverage of his own financial chicanery with the Chinese Energy Fund Committee, he had Intercity Press roughed up and banned 206 days. And so we'll cover the meeting from right here. And let me assure you that Mr. Secretary General didn't even bother coming. That is a failure. Sleeping on the job. Disgusting. Okay, now, let's check it out. Let's see. Maybe we can't see it correctly. We're going to have to move this around. Yes, we'll cover it. See, we've covered the UN for 10 years. And one corrupt Secretary General... Wait a second. It's Pompeo. Pompeo himself is coming in. Look at him. Wait, let's see if we can get a better view. Can you see him? Oh, man. It's too sunny out here. There we go. Pompey. Pomp's in the house. Now, of course, the irony here is that the U.S. stands for freedom of the press, but a U.S. journalist was roughed up and banned by the Secretary General. Nobody cares. As long as he gives them what they want, which I guess today is staying in bed sleeping. Maybe he's having waffles. Nobody quite knows what Big Tony's doing. Now let's check it out. Which way does the sun come through? I think we can do well this way. Hang on. Pompeo is in. Pompey is in the house. Let's see if we can... The problem is we're getting a lot of reflection from the building across the street. The UN, as you may know... There we go. Okay then. Wait a second. Let's move in closer. All right. This is the way Antonio Guterres wants actual journalists to cover the UN. If you suck up, if you stay inside and say he's great, he's so concerned about Venezuela that he stayed in bed today. Take a look. There's an article by Diego Arias, former ambassador of Venezuela to the UN, the namesake of the Area Formula meeting. He said that Stefan Dujarric, on behalf of Antonio Guterres, is a disgusting disgrace. of the UN. And you know what? He's absolutely right. 100%. Also, Dujarric is not in town. The spokesman is out until Monday. No answers. No answers at all for quite some time. Yes, it's true. Let's check it out. Venezuela, can they solve it? Will they solve it? When they kick off the speeches, we're going to cut back to it. We will. They're going inside. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Now, hundreds of support staff, money pouring out the windows, and Big Tony is sleeping in with his Chinese oil company money. Disgusting. Spokesman can't even bother to come in. Deputy spokesman, no answers for 4 days. A real gender studies maven. Disgusting. Hiding rapes in South Sudan. Did you know that there's a case of sexual exploitation in South Sudan that they wouldn't say who did it because the person's from Nigeria? So they hid the nationality of the perpetrator of the sexual abuse simply to please the Deputy Secretary General. The place is turned into a private club. If you come from Nigeria and you're in UN peacekeeping in South Sudan, you can kill anyone you want. And Amina Mohammed, get out of jail free card. Disgusting. She's in Nigeria right now, campaigning for the president. She's supposed to be an international civil servant, and she's in Nigeria campaigning for Buhari. Would never happen under Kofi Annan. Never happened under Ban Ki-moon. This guy is the worst. He's taken the UN into the toilet. Okay, here comes the meeting. You can hear it here. How low the UN has been brought by Antonio Guterres. Come and witness it. A joke.
The provisional
meeting. All right.
This meeting is
as follows. Let's move in closer.
Situation in the Bolivarian
Republic of Venezuela. C'est bien ça. All right. I don't know if I can live tweet it.
Does any member of the council wish to speak on the subject?
Nobody. Pompeo.
Give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Oh, ho. Procedural vote. Procedural vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Russian Federation cannot support the attempts by our American colleagues to conduct a discussion of the situation in Venezuela.
All right.
In fact, introducing in our agenda issues formulated in this way, this is a gross abuse of the prerogatives of the members of the Security Council, especially, in particular, the permanent members. The internal situation in this Latin American country is not an item on the agenda of our council. We don't see any external threats coming from what is taking place in Venezuela. Venezuela does not represent a threat to peace and security. If anything does represent a threat to peace, it is the shameless and aggressive actions of the United States and their allies aimed at the ouster of the legitimately elected president of Venezuela. In essence, before us, we're seeing unceremoniously and in breach of all norms of international law, an attempt by Washington to engineer a coup d'etat in this country.
Coup d'etat.
And the situation about which we will no doubt hear the views of the people of Venezuela and Latin American states. This situation the Council is supposed to consider as a supposed threat to Venezuela.
This is
this connection. We request
the permanent representative of the Russian Federation,
about which we're supposed to hold a meeting up for a procedural vote.
Bus Stop Studios. Once again,
item situation in Venezuela,
Antonio Guterres is corrupt.
There is no such item on the agenda of the Security Council. In our view, it would be right to conduct a discussion on an item threat to international peace and security, violation of Article 2.4 of the UN Charter.
2.4.
We call on all who share our point of view to support us. Thank you.
Procedural vote is coming. Procedural vote is coming. Now, Dominican Republic is the president this month. Bus Stop Studios. We're right here in front of the United Nations.
Does any other member of the council wish to take the floor?
Pompeo. Maybe he's not even going to speak. He's just going to count on getting the votes.
I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Michael Pompeo, Secretary of State of the United States of America.
Mr. Michael Pompeo.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dominican Republic.
The focus of the UN Security Council is to safeguard international peace and security. The former Maduro regime has oppressed its people for years, forcing millions of Venezuelans to flee the country merely to gain
Where
very
is
basic
Guterres?
access
Sleeping in.
to food
Sleeping
and water.
in.
This has overwhelmed the capacity of regional countries to adequately address urgent humanitarian needs. Former President Maduro bears full responsibility for this tragedy, allowing Venezuelans to languish without food and humanitarian assistance.
The bus stop studio.
On January 10th, the OAS passed a resolution that refused to recognize the illegitimate Maduro regime and called for further attention to address
this guy's coming in late. Who do we got? Who's coming in late? Got to check it out. You never know what's in there. Could be any human trafficking? Bribe money for Antonio Guterres? That's what it's come to. When they start beating up journalists, you got to start wondering, what does he have to hide?
Has yet to hold a formal session on this subject.
Okay, we're back.
Now we have a new leader, Juan Guaido, in Venezuela, who has promised to bring elections and constitutional order back to Venezuela and security back to the region.
All right.
We cannot delay this critical conversation, which has the world's attention. For the sake of Venezuela and the region, we must support the Venezuelan people and do so right now. Thank you.
Where the owner sleeps in.
My thanks to His Excellency Mr. Pompeo for his statement.
They're going to have the vote?
In view of the request and the comments made by members of the Security Council, I intend to put the provisional agenda to the vote. Accordingly, I shall put it to the vote now.
Okay. I'm guessing
those in favor of the adoption of the provisional agenda, the situation in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, please raise their hand.
Oh. Sorry that this is a little bit blurry. There's going to be some abstainers too, so I take my vote count back. Hang on.
Those against.
Abstenciones. ¿Quién es más? Russia, against.
Abstentions.
Whoa, I miscounted. Bolivia's off the council. What's the vote count, guys? You probably already know, but I'm out here in the sun and the cold. El voto es lo siguiente, dice el presidente.
The result of the voting is as follows. 9 votes in favor.
9, that's all they needed.
4 votes against. 2 abstentions.
Those abstentions. The agenda is adopted. 942. The meeting will go forward. Maybe now now he's got his finger in the wind.
As a result of the vote,
time to roll
the
over
provisional agenda has been adopted.
946.
So I reiterate that the provisional agenda has been adopted.
Now let's see. It's going to be Rosemary DiCarlo, former U.S. Deputy Ambassador. Did you know that Rosemary DiCarlo is Chief of Staff? Her husband, who's a photographer, took over the UN website of the Security Council.
In accordance
Nothing ever happened. Total corruption.
Of the Council's provisional rules of procedure,
let's check it
I
out.
invite the representatives of Argentina, Barbados, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominica, Ecuador,
What about Venezuela
El Salvador, the plurinational state of Bolivia, Mexico, Nicaragua, Paraguay, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Uruguay.
The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Almost screwed that one up. They're in. No one's going to contest whether he's still the foreign minister.
It is so decided.
Así queda aprobado. Okay. The speech is being distributed. Is it Rosemary DiCarlo's speech? We may have to go.
In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo,
there we go,
Under Secretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, to participate in this meeting.
So where is Guterres? Where is the Secretary General? Why is he getting paid so much money to fly to his home in Lisbon and he can't even get out of bed to come to this meeting? Disgusting.
The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda.
wish I could. Maybe I can.
I now give the floor to Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the situation in Venezuela is cause for serious concern. The protracted crisis in the country has had a grave impact on the population.
Some people said that Russia should have been able to get the Department of Political Affairs in exchange for allowing a non-Eastern European to take the seat.
Human rights concerns.
They got screwed. All they got was counterterrorism.
The situation in the country has become dire.
Now, from their point of view,
efforts
they have this.
To bring the
But they do have
government and
Guterres sleeping in,
to the
so
negotiating
there's
table
that, of course.
have not led to concrete agreements. The Secretary General has consistently stated
is sleeping in his house as this meeting takes place. He's been spending your money for more than a year, beating up journalists to conceal his corruption.
The situation has both an economic and political dimension. The population is affected in a systemic way. Nearly all
Guterres just wants to get a second term. You see, he can't afford to piss off either the U.S. or Russia, so he just sleeps in so he can keep stealing money.
And basic supplies, deterioration of health and education services, deterioration of basic infrastructure such as water, electricity, transport, and urban services.
Okay, here we are. The meeting continues. The coverage continues here on First Avenue. Inner City Press.
We, the UK,
roughed up and banned from the UN by a corrupt Secretary General for reporting on his business connections to the Chinese Energy Fund Committee. We are covering the Venezuela meeting. But we ask you, where is Guterres? Why was it Rosemary DiCarlo that spoke and not him? He's in town. In fact, we've put up Vine video of UN security guarding Antonio Guterres' mansion, $15 million mansion where he lives alone. People talk about Maduro. You need to check out Guterres. You really do. The Guterres regime at the United Nations, where he can have a journalist beaten up without any due process for daring to ask him about his corruption. The only thing he hasn't been caught yet is eating an empanada out of a drawer as he gives a speech. But that too shall come.
The UK stands with the EU.
The UK, I don't know. The UK stood by, very happy, while Paul Biya killed the Anglophones. Why did they do it? Because Liam Fox bragged about an oil deal for New Age oil. Here comes a photographer. This guy will get in. As long as you don't ask about Big Tony, you're in, bro. You're in. Just praise the Big Tone. There he is, Alan Duncan, Minister of the United Kingdom. I have to shrug because I can't get in. Where are the tourists? They're not taking Big Tony's not getting his. Oh, Guterres is the Secretary General. Good question. It's good that you don't know who he is. He's been in power for 2 years. All he did was take public money to go to his home in Lisbon. Shocking. Now, I don't know what time that. Maybe they're not taking tourists today. What's up? Big Tony's full of. They get $20 a head here. I was going to interview people and ask them what they thought of Tony. Some people don't even know who he is. Sleeping in his house. Now we've come up this way with our cold fingers, which you can see right there,
we should today all stand
to see what the Venezuela demonstration is all about.
And in support.
See, we're going to cover the UN. I want to explain that to the viewer. Antonio Guterres. See, the UN it's a hybrid organization. The Security Council I've covered for 10 years. I've covered their trips to the DRC. But because suddenly they put in a Secretary General who was uniquely corrupt and uniquely a censor, I found myself physically beaten by UN security. No repercussions. I went to the police. They said it's assault and you can't do anything. They're immune. Immunity. All right, we're coming over to check out the protest, such as it is. UK is done. Gracias, señor.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Duncan for his statement.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Why don't you give up the documents?
Representative
of France?
Peru.
Of Peru?
Thank you, President.
¿Por qué no la France?
We are grateful for the convening of today's meeting.
All right.
We also appreciate the invaluable information that's been shared with us by Ms. DiCarlo.
Let's see how big this protest is. Is this going to be pro or I have no idea. I saw the flag, that's all.
Officials who are attending this meeting this morning. We believe it's important that the Security Council does indeed proceed to discuss the situation in Venezuela under Article 34 of the Charter of the United Nations. an article which
we'll check it out. We're going in.
Authorizes the Security Council to address any situation
humanitarian emergency,
the maintenance of international peace and security. Such a step of discussing this issue is also a representative of our commitment to preventive diplomacy, which is a duty of this Council. Peru notes with alarm that the breakdown of constitutional order in Venezuela has unleashed a serious political, economic and humanitarian crisis, which represents a threat to regional peace and security. The policy of repression pursued by the illegitimate regime of Nicolas Maduro targeting his own people has fueled the prospects for fresh escalations of...
Okay, inside the Security Council, the meeting goes on. Inner-city press banned from entering the UN for having covered the corruption of the Antonio Guterres regime at the UN. But we've just shown you a protest that's taking place out here on 47th Street. We're now going to go and try to find a way to actually write our story about the speeches and the procedural vote. A little hard to do it at the bus stop. It's quite cold. But to me, what the other sycophants allowed in, state media of blood-splattered Saudi Arabia and China, etc., won't mention is that Guterres wasn't even there, and he is in town. In this cold, 25 degrees, I biked by the mansion where this decadent individual lives all alone. And there in front, UN security. He didn't even bother to come 10 blocks south to a meeting on this topic. Whatever his views. Now, maybe he's pro-dictatorship. I mean, I know that he is. And you can take that either way you want. Maybe rule of law, give me a break. But now, in this standing walk-up, I want to show you something. Take a look at this. That building across the street is where Eng Lap-Sang lived. He was the first of the Chinese bribers of the UN. With his Sun Kian-ip Foundation, he purchased documents. And the people that he bribed still work for Antonio Guterres. Now, there's been a second one. He got, closed-door massages while he was on trial, amazingly enough. Now, the second trial was even worse because Guterres himself is involved. He's involved. He refused to audit, and he had the press that asked about it beaten up. Totally correct. Now, this is another building here in the UN world. In this building, you'll find the missions of France, the UK, Turkey, Italy. Now, these guys all act that they're for freedom of the press. But they witnessed this summer, and were directly asked about. One of them, Mr. Delattre of France, said, I don't know how it could happen. Meanwhile, he's having big meetings about protection of journalists. It's a joke. Total hypocrisy. We have a FOIA in to the UK mission. What was their role with their national, Alison Smale, and having a journalist thrown out with no due process? You know what? They withheld all the documents. So we've appealed to the Information Commissioner's Office of the UK. It's true. No, Southern Cameroon. That's a good question. Why isn't, and here we can blame the whole council, all 15 members. They moved heaven and earth to have a meeting on this, which is it's a Saturday. That's fine. During the slaughter in Cameroon, there has not been a single meeting. And it's not just the fault of Russia and China who don't like to get involved in quote-unquote internal affairs. France uses French Africa as its colony, still, regardless of the statements of Macron. The UK, I guess out of desperation for post-Brexit deals, cut an oil deal with Bia. The other ones just don't care enough. There was one Swedish diplomat that seemed to care. Still nothing was done. The Dutch, please, they withheld every single document. Every single one. They're just phoning it in. But they'll blow up on today's activity. Okay then. We've reached 3rd Avenue. We're getting outside. Already the air feels crisper and better. Why? Because we're further away from the sinkhole that Antonio Guterres. China what? China what? China Energy Fund Committee. Google that and Guterres and you'll find out just how corrupt the UN is. To be continued.